Welcome to Tech at Lunch, the podcast that satisfies your hunger for all things tech while you enjoy your midday meal. So grab your sandwich, tune in, and let's dig in. Hello, I'm Nick.
Hey, I'm John.
And, this week we don't have Ned's out doing something. But, we wanted to kind of keep on our preventive maintenance track here. And we kind of want to talk about the preventative maintenance and, like, the IT side of additive manufacturing. So, you're not talking, it's not just pointed at, software, hardware, or anything like that.
Right.
It's actually, at the IT infrastructure, side of the house for it.
Your digital stuff.
Right. So, and the thing is, IT preventive maintenance is a whole different bag of animals versus what you get from the mechanical side of the house.
Yeah. And they're starting to get more and more, like your tech for maintenance. I think we've said it was a long time ago before. I think Ed was the one who said it, but that OT and that IT guy are becoming the same person.
Yep.
So you, as a maintenance technician, may find yourself trying to troubleshoot like a Profinet connection or a wireless connection that's kind of giving you some issues. Whereas also if you're on the software side, you've just been doing IT and you're like, okay, well, I manage a database that controls robot codes or something like that,
mm-hmm.
and the robot codes are not being read. You then become part of the OT team because you're helping that side. And then the easiest way to see if your results work for a giant robot is to see if it works in its cell.
Right.
So go out to the line and check those things. So
you go from the hard hammer to the digital hammer.
Exactly. But that person's becoming the same thing. But like we talked about in the last episode, like you're more mechanical fixes, or your mechanical preventive maintenance. Like we talked about our checklist. We talked
right.
about these are the things that you would look for if you had like a hardware failure or a industrial machine that's doing repetitive motion over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But on that same side is that the IT does a little bit different. Maybe they're not on the line, but there's monitoring systems. Like
right.
we talk MQTT in Industry 4.0 as well. Like
exactly.
These things blend, and you really have to watch for not only, like, you can keep these data points, and it ends up being you can watch for like critical points,
mm-hmm.
right? Like if we talk about just purely your database, you talk about CPU usage on the server, you talk about disk storage, network connectivity. Those are some of the main kickers. Maybe some services that have to run,
right.
But it depends on the application. But then on the other side of things is that you have not only that, like constant monitoring that you can set up with like maybe Nagios. Dynatrace is a big
mm-hmm.
one nowadays. And you can have
like
Kibana. Error logging is needed for those
right.
things. I mean, I would say that's probably one of the biggest tricks of your trade is to be able to read those logs.
Oh yeah.
Because if you can't, you don't know what the problem is.
Exactly. And the thing is 95% of the time you're going to start dealing with stuff that just may or may not make sense.
Yeah.
And because, like, if you lose a connection from a device to a database or device to a control system, everything stops.
Yeah.
It doesn't know where to proceed from there. So you're dealing with, like, network troubleshooting. So you're PMing and making sure that, hey, are my switches clean? Are they dust-free?
Right.
Are they not being overheated? Do they have the right firmware and software updates on board?
Right.
Is my software that I'm talking to updated and stuff like that?
Are my versions matching?
Right. Because if you think about it, for the hobbyist printer and stuff like that out there that we've got, we're running a lot of, Clipper on Raspberry Pis. There's an issue with the connection, that cable that connects the Raspberry Pi to the printer.
Mm-hmm.
You've now kind of disconnected that. So, that's something where you need to be able to see if that's...
It's an instruction manual. It doesn't know what to do now.
Right.
It asks, hey, what's next? And there's no answer. So it's... Honestly, hopefully it stops.
Right. If it has the program and it just keeps running, then sure.
You have a failed print.
Right. But the thing is that type of stuff that you need to,
yeah.
PM. You're PMing your Raspberry Pis. You're PMing your stuff like that to make sure that, hey, I've got all my necessary updates, all my security patches. I've got my hardware and software is upgraded to meet its potential. And
Yeah, that's true.
But that type of stuff you can also send to, um, um, like Kibana or stuff like that, and actually do a versioning. You can watch your versions and stuff like that. See if it's all
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like we get to the industry and technology are blending, any industrial like factory. So you see these things, and you could almost like just with an addition of a couple sensors. We talked about down the whole data analytics, all that stuff. You analyze these things, and you can see because we're talking about what's the key point of this little mini series we have, and it's preventative maintenance. But like what we're talking about, when you see the things fail and you respond to that, that's kind of reactive. That's kind of real time maintenance. That's what we want to avoid. If you're producing something, you want uptime and waiting till it happens and breaks and brings you down is not a good way to fix things. However, you can do redundancies and have like maybe you set up the line twice, but it ends up getting more expensive.
Yep.
Rather than effective. You're not, because then you're like, oh well, why don't I keep both of them on and produce twice as much as I usually do?
Exactly.
And then you break them at the same time and you're down twice as far. So there is a sweet spot, but honestly, waiting till something breaks isn't a good idea. So I use that kind of to bridge to my next point, which is you can use that data to create your preventative maintenance schedule that we talked about before. Like you can have checklist. I think there's two types, like two different versions of that PM checklist, I would say. So if something breaks down, there's an incident recovery checklist or something, or like maintenance checklist whenever something's broken. But then we do that, and that's catastrophic fail happened. Check everything. How can I safely get my whatever machine back online as quick as possible? Is it a consumable? Is it something IT related, or is it mechanical? But if you get these sensors attached to databases that like Kibana that log and read these, and you create watchers that send you alerts, you can get it as it's happening, and then you can pull up a schedule or a time, maybe like run it for like 6 months. Pull up that timeline, say, okay, it looks like every about three or so months we get some type of big incident that brings us down for a longer period of time. So let's say at about 2.5 months, that's our deadline to do this PM. And then you create a PM for that, and it's more specific. It's a smaller PM, and it should be, I would guess, more of a, like, I would even have maybe a project team lead, if it's a bigger machine, lead those specific PMs, because now they have a schedule. They know on these days or these weeks, I need to do this, or the machine goes down. And then you can separate now that the guys who are kind of the jack of all trades and fix everything and kind of react in the moment, those guys are very valuable because they can get you up and running in the quickest time because they know a little bit of everything. However, if you have someone focused on these robots specific to the station, then they know that their preventive maintenance is up to scale. You can kind of hold them like an auditor. Like they audit to make sure this is getting checked, and then you can kind of focus both kind of realms. They make sure you're on schedule for the bigger, like to ensure constant uptime, and then you train the team as like kind of a task force to respond to them in the moment. To me, that would probably be one of your most effective kind of systems that you would have for PMs, and in that case, you end up getting away from. You do need to learn. Downtime's going to happen.
Oh yeah,
like
that's not a doubt.
It just takes one tree falling down the wrong way, and like honestly, that just like considering how it is nowadays, you get one rainstorm. It's been so hot here, it gets like up to like. When 95, it rains, and then it gets hot again, and then it rains. It's been constant in South Carolina, so it's something that, you see constantly. But it takes something as small as that to bring your factory to a standstill. And if you don't have the people that are prepared to respond, then you're stuck anyways. You can't just focus on trying to beat it to the punch.
Right, and the thing is with that, it's always, also like you use Power BI, stuff like that, to visualize everything. So you can have your visualizations up and running, real-time monitoring, it can monitor freaking like the real-time outputs and stuff like that. For me, it's making sure that people are aware of what the schedule is, if you're going to have a schedule on it. And that it becomes it's a repetitive nature of bringing something down, doing an update, then bring the next thing down, then the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing, and knock those out while you still have time. You start doing your more deeper and deeper and deeper things. It's also
it should be cyclical, like
right.
constant.
And
like,
don't be afraid to do maintenance shutdowns on IT networks.
oh yes,
Bring them down, repair them, check them, make sure there's no funny issues going on with it. Make sure that you go in and update all your switches and stuff like that. By the way, Microsoft is Patch Wednesday, so they always patch on Wednesdays.
That's a preventative maintenance.
So you'll always see you get an update or something like that for your laptop on a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
It's Patch Wednesday. The same thing with cell phones. I just got an update on both of the iPhones that I carry this morning that they're doing a rapid security update.
Yeah.
On the iOS infrastructure. It's make sure those are installed. We understand some companies, they like to validate that the patches will work with their current subsystem that they've got. Just make sure your stuff is built agnostically, so you don't have to actually worry about patch version.
Yeah.
Either that, or if you're really worried about that, build it all on Linux.
Yeah, Linux will probably be happier most of the time, and it runs lighter. So
right.
I think the more and more that data that your company relies on, the more and more you're going to be forced to do a lot of those maintenance things. I mean, I would call a security update or a security patch, I would call that mandatory, and that's preventative maintenance too.
Right.
Because like just we're thinking about like environmental issues or maybe some OSHA violations or maybe mishandling of a process to break a machine.
Right.
However, you can have someone who has maybe malicious intent and wants to hack into your machine that could bring things down as well. So you need to be able to defend against that. I mean, that's why we push the cybersecurity stuff so much more nowadays.
Exactly.
Things are so much easier. Computers are so much stronger. Like, if it's encrypted, you just need a computer that can do the algorithm long enough to be able to get through. And, like, honestly, it becomes, like, it's just bigger and bigger encryptions, bigger and bigger algorithms, longer and longer, or more and more time it's going to take to do things. But, I don't know if anyone's aware of quantum computing, but quantum computing flips a lot of that on its head. So, like, you need to prepare. I'm not saying that that's, it's very expensive to get a quantum computer right now. It's not commercial right now. It's very, like, proprietary in-house with a lot of systems. I know IBM has one. There's a couple other companies I think have some. But their computing power is so great that they can do what a conventional computer does in like a split second. Their bits exist as on and off instead of having to be turned on and off.
Right.
So it's kind of like how an solid state is much more advanced than a standard hard drive. So in that sense, if you can get your transistors and your computers, your software to work off of quantum computers, then it makes you more risk if you're all conventional, which probably all of them are.
Right.
There's probably very few that are quantum computing at this point. But you just get, if someone has malicious intent and has a machine that has the power to get in, and you are not adequately trying to stop it, or at least error log to see it happening, then you're left holding like
the proverbial bag.
You're stuck there, and everyone sees you with the problem, but they won't find the person that did it, right? So if you're not prepping yourself with vulnerability checks and scans and stuff, that's preventative maintenance too.
Day in, day out.
Yeah, like there's new 0-day attacks all the time, and if you're not looking for them, like, you're going to be the next 0-day attack.
Right, and the thing is these companies don't publish their security patch updates and security infrastructure updates just for the the heck of it. It's because they've done the research in it. They've been involved in this stuff. They know what's going on.
They probably hacked it in themselves to see if it would work.
And it's like, and it's also, you may think that, I have my shop floor segregated from my main floor. I know nothing touches the shop floor.
Closed network, yeah.
Right. If you close your network system, guess what? You still need to update it.
You still need to update it.
And you still need to update. You can still have an idiot with a freaking thumb drive.
Oh, yeah.
And and the fact that they didn't know what they were doing, and they plugged the wrong thing in the wrong port, and next now we have a bigger issue to deal with.
I mean, look at your processes. What do you do day in and day out if you're not looking for those things? So even if it's a closed network, and you have someone that comes in and doesn't know the proper process to, update data, change data, check data, then they accidentally leave a door open. It's the same thing as like leaving your front door open accidentally because you gave the wrong person a key. Right. So it's it's digital. Yeah, you can't see it, but if that door is open, I mean, we talked about it before. You make a honeypot PC. That's just a port checker to see how many people try to access your network or your devices. You just make it look like it's a vulnerable device, and you'll probably get 20 to 30,000 hits a day.
Yeah.
Just trying to get into your data, because if they see any chance to get any type of money off of it, then that's what they're going for. And if you don't set yourself up like a sitting duck.
Right. And the thing is also that can go on to, making sure that you change your passwords. Password changing, master password changing for, systems should be changed. As a preventive maintenance. Like if you're, if you change it from a master password to disable that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Go to user passwords. Make sure that when you're doing your PMs, you're checking to make sure that master password is disabled. That somebody didn't go in there and turn the darn thing back on, and now you're running with the old root password.
And then it's about accountability too.
Right.
Because like if you're teaching, are you adequately, we talked about cybersecurity awareness a few episodes ago. Are you adequately teaching your team like the vulnerabilities, or let's say the consequence of an inaction? Like if you don't lock out, tag out a system, and you go into the station and get taken out by that robot, whose fault is it? Is it yours for not locking and tagging it out, or is it the systems because the light curtain didn't turn off, right? So like there's a whole bunch of things that like it becomes after the fact. It is reactionary, and it becomes sad to say, but it does get to a point where it's finger pointing. Who is at fault here? Because then you have to figure out what we need to do to the next step, which I was going to get to, like when it's like retroactively going back to an incident and setting in preventative, like long-term goals. So when things happen, like if you're not accurately like reporting, accurately noting, and then teaching your team hey, we don't want you to do this because this is what happens, and like test. I mean, you don't have to test them like a standard test, but like ask them and get them to repeat it back. And if there's an understanding, then boom, that's the basis. We can move on. And then that's, to me, it's a preventative maintenance on the awareness of your team.
Right.
Like there's so many ways that you can kind of use that preventative maintenance ideology to make sure you're constantly producing.
Oh yeah.
You are, not at risk or vulnerable, and you're growing. It's everything is like production, constant uptime. If you're keeping someone's data, like I bet you if you went to a website and hit login and it took 4 seconds before it redirected and said you're logged in, you think the website's broken. I think everybody does that. I'm like, okay, well, is my network not connected? I go immediate troubleshooting. Like, it's like, this is not good. I flush my DNS. What do I need to do here? But at the end of the day, is if something is not acting like normal, we choose it's an indicator to us that something's not right. So we should use those, and I think that kind of taking those and reflectively looking at your problems is very important, because you're like, okay, well, we need to. Maybe this thing shouldn't be on, 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Maybe we should have, this day we'll turn it off.
Downtime windows.
Yeah, and exactly what you're saying, downtime windows. Redundancy computers, like then you can flap back and forth. But yeah, it becomes expensive, but it's still, you have to weigh it. It's opportunity cost. Right. Is it more expensive? How long did it take you to fix it last time? Is it more expensive to take and eat that downtime than to spin up a backup system? And then that's where, maybe the financial team has to take a step in and say, hey, we can't. Maybe they want to do both.
And it's, the thing is, it's like, remember that, these machines hold more and more and more data by the day. Every day they consume, store, and use more data than what it was before. They're also getting to the size that they can easily, hurt, kill, or maim somebody. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Like, for example, if you're doing maintenance on these machines, if you're doing industrial, you have a scaling switch involved. You also have a PLC involved of some sort. Make sure those are updated. Make sure they have the nearest patches. If somebody disables something, and like you said, the lotto doesn't work or lockout tagout doesn't work, you're going to get killed by a machine.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
the last thing you
you
want.
know, they're going to be like haunted by the world of coconut.
No.
So, but the thing is, it's, you know, make sure that stuff's updated, because that's stuff that has to communicate. If it doesn't communicate, it's going to shut down, or it's going to hurt somebody, or it's going to do something. You know, and also make sure your PII stuff is adequately updated. So if you have databases you're running that's got PII data on it, so like customer information, customer order information, stuff like that, make sure that is updated, secured, locked down, so it's not able to get into it. No one's able to get into it. So make sure you're changing those passwords. Make sure you're, you know, making sure and auditing your access lists. That is the biggest thing when it comes down to PMs for IT infrastructure, is doing access audits. Is auditing your infrastructure to see how many people are not there anymore that have access to a system. I couldn't tell you how many times I've logged in and they said, "Hey, do me a favor, do an audit," and I'm going through the systems going, "Well, that person's not here. This person has been here for 2 years."
Like, yeah, I was gonna
you
say.
know,
Like,
it's one of those things. Or, hey, this person is getting removed from the company. We need to lock down their accounts and get them ready.
yeah, because if your accounts are still in the system, it takes up space.
Right.
It takes up processing power. And I mean, honestly, it's, you know, the best way I think to say it is, if you don't use it, you lose it. Like,
Right.
if you don't have or need the access to the system, it's very clear if you're still working here, then you don't need this system to do your everyday work. Then we're going to go ahead and remove it. It's going to help us maintain, you know, accountability, maintain, you know, credibility of those that are making those changes. And then if anything gets updated, we know that we don't need to train you on the new release of it, right? So,
and it's also the malicious intent. If somebody logs, it's through the firewalls and portals and stuff like that.
oh yeah, and you can
They can
probably track that too.
They can log into the system, and you see that, oh shit,
Yeah.
this person is, you know, using malicious intent to attack the company they just left. You know, you can see that. You know, for example, if anybody's ever had to, you know, remove people and stuff like that, and you know, now with the age of, you know, social media, you can see what their thought process is. You can kind of see what they're throwing out there. So you start making sure that you got that stuff locked down, and you can actually, you know, prevent
integrity, man.
issues from happening. You know, it's like my thing is and the reason why I do that, harp on that, is because the way that, you know, the work ethic is these days, it doesn't exist. So, you know, people are leaving jobs quicker than they're getting them, but they're also not showing up to jobs that they've already gotten. Take a look at McDonald's.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if somebody does leave the company, remove their accounts immediately. You know, have that process that you go through, that you remove. Just in case, you know, it doesn't mean they left on bad terms. It could just be, you know, moving on and moving to bigger and better things, which that's what we all hope happens. You know, we all hope when somebody leaves a company, they leave for bigger and better pastures.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's that. But, however, it's making sure that that's taken care of. You know, database accessing, system and network access, and stuff like that needs to be audited to make sure that you're not overuse on that type of stuff. And then it's also monitor your guests, like, especially if you're looking at your networks. Don't let anything that's, you know, and make sure that you're also auditing, you know, who's on your guest network.
That's true.
You know, who's on your networks and stuff like that. Making sure that your networks are clean. A bad network can bring down an entire production facility. Somebody hogging bandwidth that should be hogging bandwidth can wreak havoc on data transfer, you know, on the lines and stuff like that. But, you know, PMing of IT systems is also making sure and doing error checking. It's routinely going through and looking at your logs and saying, I need to improve that because I see this error, you know, day in, day out, day in, day out. Well, maybe next time we get a time to shut down, I can fix those errors.
Yeah.
I can fix those problems. We won't see that again.
So you track it to also, like, give yourself, you know, a better idea of what the kind of effects of your shop floor is.
Right.
I mean, a good example of what you were speaking about earlier about making sure you're keeping your data safe. You know, it is about integrity, and I mean, there's a good example of keeping things separate is Tesla and Lucid. So Lucid was created by like a former vice president of, I'm not sure what specific department or if it was of all of it. but he left Tesla and created another electric car company. Now you can probably think that might be a bit suspicious, right? Like if we're making electric cars and then you quit and you make your own electric cars. Okay, now I may have cause to say that you copied me on some things, right? So in a lot of those cases, when you're locking down some people's accounts, it's safety of intellectual property and kind of maintaining those boundaries as well. Because like that's a case where Lucid is still a company, Tesla's a company. Now there's no lawsuits that I know of for IP infringement. But if you look at both cars, they're very much different. I mean, a lot of engineers that worked on the model, I think Y, came over to Lucid as well. And yes, it is an electric car, so it's very similar, but it's different in its makeup. So that's a way like things were done right.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now, there may be things that we don't know about that come to light later, but for the most part, it looks like things were done right. Companies are separate, and that's a proper way to do it. So
and the support has been voiced for each other's brands from each other's presidents.
Exactly.
So it's not like it's anything
the goal
bad.
of electrifying the cars is there, and they're not working against each other.
Right.
So I think it becomes a competitiveness, and with capitalism, it breeds competitiveness, but it doesn't have to be malicious either. So if you do things the right way, you can still you should still be able to continue production, and then you trickle that down to your teams. Like you have the integrity of the team to kind of stand up if they're like, okay, this guy's maybe entering some data where he shouldn't, or he's not locking his systems out or something like that.
Right.
Then you can kind of take care of that stuff.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you see it in a lot of different companies, but that's like a big name that's like very, very much so working together. And
if I'm not mistaken, Rivian, the guy who opened Rivian used to work for him too.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, a lot of the cars nowadays, and sorry to get off on a tangent about electric vehicles, but a lot of cars that are electric nowadays were just combustion cars with the engine ripped out and an electric engine thrown in.
Yep.
But these guys are smart because they built the car with electrification in mind, so it's much better of a engineered product. So that's just a side note. The cost is different. The cost is very separate.
Yeah, very
it's tough for those metals and those rare elements, but like if we think about it, they keep them separate so that we can kind of keep the main mission going. And that's the same thing with a lot of the preventative maintenance, is that your maintenance team, your IT team, they should be working together, your shop floor team, they should be focusing on how do we maintain the safest, most efficient workplace.
And you should have, your IT guys integrated in your maintenance teams. That's if you should have a IT maintenance section that handles all IT related maintenance topics for maintenance.
Yeah.
So if your maintenance techs are having to update, HMIs and all this other stuff, you have an OT team that's their entire job, is supporting shop floor technologies and stuff like that. So the main IT group can focus on making sure the other infrastructure.
Yeah, or new releases, new features.
Right.
Bringing in more value to existing.
And the thing is like when you start getting into access control, PMing and stuff like that, when you start talking about additive manufacturing, you start dealing with like chemicals that should be thoroughly locked down.
You need an MSDS.
Right. And all your MSDS documentation done. But you start talking about like isopropyl alcohol. You start talking about the resins. Now some resins, like the ones from Frozen, are water soluble, so you don't have to clean in IPA anymore. But seeing that go long term is going to be very rare. But it's making sure that no one has access to those commodities that shouldn't have access to those commodities, especially in large quantities. The one thing that you deal with when you start dealing with IPA and isopropyl alcohol, or alcohol in general, is the fact that alcohol in general can crystallize and turn into a bomb. And you start getting people who get hurt. So it's making sure that all the facility control systems that control ventilation, control your lights, your fans, all of that for the entire factory or entire office space, make sure that stuff is updated. Because the last thing you need in the middle of the day is your AC going down because somebody hacked into your AC unit to shut you down.
Especially during this time, like the heat wave coming through in most of these states, like that's almost that'll shut you down for longer.
Your BMS systems are very vulnerable, and is also the BMS systems. If somebody really want to know about your company, they can log into they can hack into a BMS system and actually see what hours you're running and what areas are running the most and stuff like that, and they can actually see all that. Just by pulling data from a BMS. So it's locking those systems down, making sure those are updated, make sure they got their patches.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's important because you log in, exactly what you're saying, who uses what room. If you start learning what rooms are which, then you start saying, okay, well, this person has access to this room, so I need to focus on trying to find a vulnerability with this person. Just takes leaving one door open, and then boom, you're in. So it's the same thing. Also, social engineering happens a lot too. So if you can kind of see a lot of those things and kind of keep track, because building management systems, they look at the lights and all that stuff too, but I would assume some of the cameras on the outside are part of that as well.
They are.
Just to kind of monitor who's coming in and who's going. So it's all about, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about safety, maintaining uptime. Like, that's the goal, efficiency. Like, we do have a focus and preference for the maintenance team because they are making sure the big machines move. So we need to kind of, in a lot of cases, we defer to them because if we're just IT side, we may not have as much knowledge about kind of the inner workings and some of the safety concerns there. They might have more rigorous training on some of those safety concerns. Most likely they should already have them kind of logged. But the goal is to maintain uptime, but the secondary goal is to support the maintenance team so that they can maintain that uptime, because at the end of the day, if something breaks and it's mechanical at all, they're going to go after those guys. If anything breaks and it's technical at all, who are they going to come after? They're not going to go after the maintenance team. But if you work for the maintenance team to protect them on a lot of those things, they will step in and try to assist you as well.
Right.
So it's a one team, one dream kind of idea.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's also making sure, with that type of stuff, like you said, the social engineering side of the house is make sure that your security systems are updated. Because the thing is if I can hack into your system, and this goes on the PM side, but also the build side of security, I can recreate a badge. All I need is a badge reader, and make sure I have the same RFID tags you do. I can print my own badge, and you're not going to check it. You
won't know.
Because I can badge in and out of your systems.
It'll look like the other person.
It looks like the other person's done it. Yeah. So, make sure that stuff's locked down. They freely sell badge makers. So you can freely buy a badge maker that can hook up to software and systems and stuff like that. But all they do is take an XML imprint, and guess what? Now you have access to their systems. And then all they have to do is hack your system and drop their data into the system, or make sure everything matches one for one, do a carbon copy, and off you go. You're now in. So, the thing is prevent the battle plans. And maintain those things out of the process. Make sure that, all your stuff is updated. Make sure your locks are updated. If you're using digital locks to keep people out of those areas that shouldn't be in those areas. Because 95% of the time when somebody breaks into something, it's because the lock doesn't have a firmware update. Because you just pull on it, it opens up because it's not locking, because the actual lock mechanism and the receiver aren't jiving.
You'll very much know that there's an issue there, especially. I mean, you can verify if it's a physical issue immediately by looking at a lock like that.
Right.
I mean, you can tie all those things together and then keep your people safe too, and a lot of that is at the end of the day, you keep your people safe, you're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping your data safe, because all it takes is that entry point, and who knows how long. I mean, ask Colonial Pipeline how much that open, door that they left got them. Like, they got hit with ransomware, and that's, I mean, probably, what was it, a phishing email or something like that? You just, one click is going to cost you, what, $5 million? Like, I don't have $5 million.
And the thing is, it's like, it's also the fact that you got these guys out there who, that's what they do. They don't do good things, they do bad things. So, that's like you said, they're always looking for it. But always take all your logs and throw them into a log repository. Make a data pool for maintenance, a preventive maintenance system that they can look at and say, okay, cool, this is what's going on. I've got this. I can watch it in real time. If you start noticing that you're starting to lose certain things here and there, there you go. If I log in and I say, guess what? I have the, I'm talking about printers. If I say, hey, I've got this printer that I've lost my first layer on 3 or 4 times, maybe it's time to look at it. Something's not right.
Yeah, or you can exactly see that spot of where, like, you can see, okay, maybe I review it. I don't know when in this first 5 minutes the first layer messed up, but it looks like at about the second minute. So now I'll sit here and observe. So that's the one piece I don't think we touched on, was the observing of preventive maintenance and kind of the benefits of it, because you won't see it before the fact if nothing's done. Like, seeing is believing, so you wouldn't know, like, how are we sure unless you've seen it before. But then you get into these things like maybe tabletop simulations, some maybe fire drill type situations, and then you could dig in deep to how it works, what would happen, and then when it happens, okay, we did this before. Okay, let me think about this. Okay, I've never seen this, and then you could bring that to your next fire drill.
Right.
Boom. Now we're growing our knowledge. We're addressing old issues. We're addressing new issues by prepping and giving more time to have a review session for those. But it's the observance of what's wrong is, that's half the battle. You can't fix it if you don't know what's happening.
You'd be surprised how many times you get a phone call. Hey, I need this fixed. Okay, so what'd you break? I don't know.
Like it just started happening randomly at 5 o'clock. Well, I see right here someone pushed the change at 4:45. Why'd they do that? Right?
Right. And if it's an update, then okay.
Like, a security update planned. Okay, cool. We are going to have to eat the downtime. If it's like, this is not supposed to happen, that seems to be, lock the system down and save us. Stop them from what they're downloading. So, it's, the more and more we get connected, the more and more your data is easily accessible.
Oh, yeah. And, the thing is the data in the cloud, the IoT data, stuff like that is becoming more and more and more, available. Yeah. Which, kind of leads me, I think, to our last point, I think, is, making sure that your MQTT endpoints are updated.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure all of that on your receive side and your send side are updated. If you remove a robot, remove the connection.
What did we say the other day? It was like, if you have, it's like you have garbage data coming in, you're going to get garbage data coming out.
Yeah.
So like
garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. If I'm looking to see whether my fire suppression system is working, and I'm over here looking to see if the lights are turned on, that's not going to give you what you want.
Right.
Like, look in the right place. Make sure that the data coming in is what you need. You don't have a log that's 500 entries long, looking at the wrong component. So you actually are addressing an issue. So keeping that, what is it, auditing? What did you say earlier? Like, we just need to keep track of that. The data coming through, and
just the log auditing and stuff like
log
that.
Log auditing, that's what it was.
Is, make sure things are correct. Make sure we don't have any major issues, and make sure it's nothing funny going on that no one knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that kind of gets you, every single time is if this breaks, this other thing breaks, but the central thing didn't break.
Like the domino effect.
Right. And, it's and like me and Ev said before, and I think you're part of some of the conversations, data is the new oil. Is protect that data at all costs. Do your updates to protect the data.
Yeah.
Because that data is very vulnerable and valuable, and it's very valuable to do your maintenance off of. If you wipe all your data because, I'm doing a clean house and I accidentally wipe my data, you just delete all your trends.
You're starting over from the beginning. Yeah. It's not that.
You better hope you already have a plan in place. So if you don't have a plan in place, you don't have anything.
This is why a lot of people have snapshots and database maintenance. We kind of didn't touch on that as much, but you should maintain. We kind of talked about what the idea was, but we never called it maintenance of your databases. But your users are probably in some type of SQL Oracle database, and you need to monitor. If you're saving quality data, you need to check those things, and you need to make sure that you're keeping them for as long as you should. There's a lot of things that if you're not upkeeping it, could also bring you down.
Yeah, exactly. Because that type of stuff, you don't have patches, it ain't gonna work.
Exactly.
But I think we've gone on a little long enough for this. Well, maybe not, but I'm sure we'll think something.
We could probably hit some more stuff.
Yeah,
honestly.
we could. But the thing is I kind of we'll end it here for a nice short episode at this point. We want everybody to know that if you need any help, let us know. We'll be there to help you. At least give you some support. So what we're thinking or stuff like that. Just let us know what the issue is. You know, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us. I think we're at 1760 something now, or 1780 listeners. You know, that's globally, which is nice. You know, and I want to thank every single one of y'all. If it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be doing any traveling. We wouldn't be doing anything to try to bring you the next information that we can get. Look for some new stuff coming out on the YouTube channels eventually. Also, some, if we can come up with more merch ideas, we'll come up with that and get y'all some new stuff. So, but, you know, I thank you, highly appreciate it, and, we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, same thing, guys. 110% very appreciative of kind of the platform to speak on any topics that kind of, if it promotes well-being or promotes, any learning or any growth, it's positive. So, working together with Nick and Ed on a lot of these things have been very rewarding. So, pushing on that idea, we want to kind of have everybody to feel that kind of same warmth around being able to fix things, being able to keep things efficient, and it does make you kind of feel like a untouchable almost if you can fix all the things and analyze these situations. So, one of the challenges that I would kind of give you all is reflect on some time in your life where you had to think kind of critically on how something broke or how something stopped working, and how if you had to be like creative in fixing a solution. If like for me, I had a chair, my only chair in the house. Just moved into an apartment and the legs broke. Figure something out. Like we ended up 3D printing some nuts and bolts for a new leg, drilled it in and made the chair again. So it's something that, like, if you can't, you need to be able to adjust in a lot of situations. So that's kind of what we want to do. And if you have any of those situations you want to kind of talk about or let us know about, reach out to us, email, anything like that. You got all the social medias, and then keep an eye out. We do have some things coming down the pipe. We are pretty excited about a couple topics. So I don't want to give too much away just yet, but just stay tuned. You'll learn soon enough.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
That's all for this episode of Tech at Lunch. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for this tech-filled lunch break. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to subscribe on all channels. And also, you can find us on YouTube under Vulcanar Technology Solutions. And join us for our next episode, which gets published every Wednesday at 8 a.m. All right, y'all. Have a good one. See you later.